Last month, I did a overview of vector graphics, just a very quick introduction. And for those of you who weren't here, I also sent out a little blurb in the announcement for this month's meeting. And again, want to put in my disclaimer, I am not a graphic artist, but I have trained over the years, I have trained artists in a variety of capacities, from desktop publishing to logo designs for cable vision. So they've taken my instruction and they've done their thing. So I'm still a computer person. The basis of computer vector graphics, as opposed to bitmap graphics, these are drawings, starting with lines, working with curves, working with shapes, winding up with logos. The little guy in the lower right-hand corner is made of circles, which is a mathematical definition of, or a mathematical function. And there's a circle for his head. And his shape actually started out as a rectangle, and I demoed that a little bit last time by taking the rectangle and then stretching the rectangle. And we'll do a little bit of that tonight. You'll see many logos out there in the world. Most of those are some sort of drawing. Vector uses, and this is what I said in the announcement, you'll see them in drawings, clip art. You'll see them in sewing, stitching, clothes designs, desktop publishing, logos, cartooning, flash animations. When I first started this title here, I think if you look very carefully above the title here, Basic Joys of Vector Graphics, you'll see animated GIFs. And cartooning is basically taking drawings and either changing the position, changing the size, changing the color. And as a result, you get some sort of animation. Think of the old flashcards where you make a picture, you offset it just a little bit, and then you run through the cards, you get yourself an animation. Well, that's what an animated GIF is. And everyone here can do an animated GIF. You take any kind of drawing, offset it a little bit, put it in a different layer in Photoshop, and save it as a GIF file. And one of the options in the GIF file is animation. And boom, you got yourself an animated GIF. We'll do that sometime in the future. But tonight, I'm not going to do CAD, but people who do drawing, interior design, architecture, engineering are involved with vector graphics. Etching, where you take a piece of stone and you etch it out, gravestones, they're using vector graphics. And 3D printing, which we all have in a couple of years. Cass will be the first one to have a 3D printer. He gets all the gadgets. And the only difference between the two in terms of the technology is one is subtractive. You're taking something out. With 3D printing, you're putting something back. You're taking a piece of material and you're building layers. So that's the only difference. One is taking it out, one is adding. Okay, I'm not going to show you the tools screenshot here. I will actually be doing and using the tools. The program that we'll be using tonight to demonstrate vector graphics will be Inkscape, and you can download it for free at inkscape.org. The big daddy of them all is, of course, Adobe's Illustrator, part of one of the many CS's, the creative suites. And we'll be looking specifically in the tutorial section, which is under the Help menu. There's also in our library the CS2 user guide from Adobe Illustrator. It's a little different, but the ideas are similar. Also can get started with vector graphics by downloading any kind of clip art from Microsoft Office. Not any kind. The ones that look more like the cartoons, because they do consider some of the clip art to be clip art when they're actually photos, they're actually JPEGs. They consider that clip art as well. And I also got some information from Andrea Tarr. She did some demos in her club, and Andrea and I collaborated many years ago. She did some consulting for me. So let's go real time. I'm going to be flying without a net. So here we are in Inkscape. And just tell me if you can't see anything. I'll try my best to make things a little bit larger. We have the typical menu that runs across the top. We have various toolbars. And then we have a third row of icons. And the third row of icons is what we call the property in Adobe products. In Inkscape, they call it the control panel or controls. So if I click on a different tool, if I click on this tool, these change. So I'm not explaining what these tools are right now, but these, again, change. That's called the control area or the properties area. These are, in fact, the tools. And we'll be going through some of these tools as I go through the tutorial. Down at the bottom, we have a color palette, and the color palette can vary. If I click on the right here, I think there is a, yes, there is a little triangle, and I can have different color profiles from anything that would be considered what is called web safe here someplace. I don't see it, but there was a palette of...
On the bottom, one up from the bottom, last one?
Yeah, oh, it's web safe 22, that's why I didn't see it. Web safe would typically be X number of colors that if you put them on the web, you know they're going to be pretty much rendered that way. That's why they're called web safe. And others go by other different kinds of profiles. I'm just going to accept right now the Inkscape default, but it doesn't matter because if you change it, you just get a different set of colors down at the bottom. And that's not the only way to use the colors. So here we go with the tutorial. As I said, it's in the help menu, and we go down to the tutorial, and we have Inkscape basics, shapes, advanced, tracing. There was big interest in tracing when Lee did a demo here several months ago, where you can take a bitmap and to a certain extent, depending on the composition of that bitmap, you can trace it and turn it into a vector graphic. I'm not going to do that tonight. That might be something we might do in the future. I've experimented with that, and there's some gotchas about that. But I'm going to start off with the basics, as I usually do. And the nice thing about this tutorial, as you'll see, it's interactive. That is, you don't just read stuff. You don't have just a video. You actually will be clicking on things, or I will be clicking on things. Anybody bring a laptop with it tonight? Nobody? Okay.
But I don't have Inkscape on.
Okay, download it. So the first thing that I'm going to do now, on a laptop, this is a little difficult for me sometimes, and I may not be able to find the right keys that I want. And I'm not finding the right keys that I want. Yeah, with the laptop here, it's in a different location, but normally, under normal circumstances, you can zoom in and zoom out. With a plus, you zoom in. With a minus, you zoom out. And what Inkscape emphasizes are a lot of key commands. Now, I don't recommend that unless you really start to use the program. If you use the program, you get used to the program, and you want a shortcut here and there, then you're going to start to learn the individual keys. But there's just too many combinations. Having said that, what I mean by combinations, yes, you click with the mouse, you right-click, you double-click, but also in combination with the clicking of the mouse, a lot of times you'll see that you'll need to use the Alt key or the Control key. So a Control click does something, an Alt click does something else, a Shift click does something else. So all these combinations of permutations, you just get to learn them after a while. There's no need to memorize them, and you just will find the necessity when you have that necessity. So again, there's just so much to remember that there's no need to learn it all. But here we have, in the intro, just in the very basics, we have some shapes. And if I click on the shape, we get some handles. And as I said, this is interactive. These handles have arrows, and arrows typically mean if you click on it and drag it, well, I didn't get the handle in the corner. I got it in the middle. I got the hand, so it's moving the whole thing. But if I'm a little more careful and get the handle in the corner, I am scaling it. I am enlarging it. So that is equivalent to like stretching it. On the other hand, if I click in one direction, I am going to distort it, but if I click in a corner and hold down a control key, in this case I happen to look for that, the control key is going to constrain the shape. So I have a square, and if I stretch it, I still have a square. I have the same shape, or I have the same proportions at least. I may not have a square here. I don't have a square. I'm not holding the control key. Now I'm holding the control. It's a laptop. Okay, it's not my computer. All right, now there we go. Now we have a square. Okay, I'm flying without a net here. So we have a square because the control key constrains the shape. For those of you who remember from geometry, a four-sided shape has one name, and a equal four-sided shape has another name, and it's called a square. So that's what we mean by constraining it. Same with a circle, which is really not the circle tool. The circle tool is really the oval tool. So if I draw with the circle tool, I get an oval. But if I hold the control key down, it snaps at some point to a circle.
Fred,
Yes?
we used to call it sizing from center.
I couldn't find that in Inkscape. I could not find that. Honestly, I looked for that. What Joanne is referencing is if you have a center point in other programs, there is a key combination where if you hold down, it's supposed to be the Alt key. I'll try it with the Alt key, and see it's still going out from the edge. I could not get it into the center. So I will continue to look for that. But I could not find that in my key experimentation of key. I tried the Alt key, I tried the Shift. I couldn't find. I would go to the internet and say, where's the center of the circle in Inkscape? But that's a good point. Because if you want to make concentric circles, you need to know that.